chances are, if you want to, retire by 45, you're going to have to do things differently. And that may require you to not have a job and be an entrepreneur and, just figure out kind of your life and income source outside of a corporate job, we'll call it.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investing Real Talk with Sherwin G.
What's up, everyone? Tyler J here.
Hey, how's it going, Tyler? How you doing?
Chilling, man. It's a Monday morning. Most people are working in their 9-to-5 job, which Sherwin, you are not.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Well, I guess your 9-to-5 job is real estate. So, at least we're both not stuck in a cubicle right now, which is nice.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting you bring it up because today's episode is about transitioning full-time into REI and back.
And back. Yeah. So that's the teaser right there, folks.
Yeah, but then just to kind of recap, this is our fourth episode, and we kind of did, if it's our fourth episode, it's like we did 3 episodes and kind of just started talking about like our journey into real estate, right? The first episode, like why we came up with this sort of show, and episode 2, we sort of dive into kind of like our simple habits that we did to sort of get our first deal. And episode 3 was sort of like the painful lessons or the lessons learned from buying our first property and kind of like how
first investment.
Yeah, how we use those lessons to kind of invest in our deals right now. And now we're kind of transitioning into kind of like, all right, we're both real estate investors. How do we transition full time into REI? And we both have kind of interesting stories regarding that topic, right?
Well, I think the first thing I want to bring up, this may be a little bit off topic, but I feel like a lot of people get into real estate investing because they're trying to escape that 9-to-5 job. Yeah. Maybe they're not happy with their income level. They're not happy with their boss. They're not happy with their commute. They're not happy with getting locked in that office for 8 hours a day. So I feel like a lot of people think that real estate investing is like the pinnacle, or not the pinnacle, like the end goal. It's like, how do I get away from the chains of society and become a real estate investor, become an entrepreneur, like control my life? So I feel like a lot of people think that real estate investing is the answer. Yeah. And I think obviously we're going to get into this, and it can be for some people, and it's also not for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you're already diving into kind of that first topic of like why even entertain not having a W-2 job, and I don't think I ever heard your story of kind of why you may be wanting to go full time in real estate or not, right? So it'd be.
Yeah, well, I mean, for those that watched the first couple episodes a while ago, my dream was to have more freedom in my life, and that was to live van life, we'll call it, for a little bit. So I guess, after kind of my experience in the corporate world, we'll call it, with the 9-to-5 job, the boss, the cubicle. Even though I enjoyed it, I didn't really want to live my life like that for 40 plus years. So it did go back to, okay, real estate was my answer to get out of that, we'll call it that, the chains of society, I keep saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I think, from my standpoint, it similar to what I just talked about, it really was my answer and is my answer to getting out of the corporate world and giving myself some more freedom. So, but I think, a couple of points that I would want to just touch on, it's like, I guess years ago, kind of crafted and envisioned my ideal life. And that was basically, again, like more time and more freedom with my family, friends, more traveling. And so one of the quotes that I always kind of look back on when I'm deciding to hop into a project or a new venture or a life change is, I look back at the quote, start with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. So basically look at what your ideal life looks like and figure out the steps to get there. And so to answer your question, Sherwin, on like, why would you entertain not having a W-2 job and not having that security? My first answer is, again, start with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. If your ideal life involves not having a W-2 job where you're going to an office every day, like take the steps necessary to get to that point. And if you can, think about not having a job, that's the first step to, achieving that ideal life of not having a job. So I guess that was just a little bit of a mindset thing for me. It's like, okay, um, not having a job is something I want my ideal life to look
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
So might as well, work towards that early on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting because that's a great point. Start with the end in mind, and it's kind of funny because it's sort of like how our my company, my investment philosophy is always like kind of when I invest, have the end in mind. We always have kind of like who our investor or our buyer in mind when we buy our deal. Like we buy our deals, who who's our ideal buyer when we sell, and we already have that in mind when we buy the deal. It's kind of like we already have that end in mind. And now to this topic, like transitioning to full time into REI, as you mentioned in the previous episodes, we kind of talked about our why. And my why when I first got into real estate was I just didn't want to pay rent, right? I just wanted to pay mortgage. I want to buy a place, and I was sick of paying, money to a landlord. And it my why sort of shifted throughout the years, especially ever since I got married and ever since I got my kid, my first son. I have two kids now, right? So once I had kids, my why changed because my life changed, right? So my why now became I want to become the best dad that I can be. That's sort of like my end goal. That's my big why. That's the reason why I kind of got into real estate, because I'm like, okay, what can I do? What are the things I can do to become the best that I can be? I'm like, okay, I want to be able to have the flexibility and freedom to be able to spend more time with my kids and my family. Okay, what's the biggest thing that's taking up most of my time? My 9 to 5 job. Okay, if I replace that 9 to 5 job, what I create another problem. Money. How am I gonna get cash from money? Okay, so if I replace the 9 to 5 job, maybe I can open my own business, be an entrepreneur and all that. And that's when I sort of dove into like real estate, because I was already investing in real estate before I got married and before I had kids. So it was a kind of a, I don't say not an easy transition, but it was something I was like, okay, and by then, when I had my son, I was already kind of reading, well into like Rich Dad Poor Dad earlier. We talked about that, and sort of like doing a lot more research, going on bigger podcasts, reading more podcasts, or listening to more podcasts and all that. So I was kind of like getting more financial education. I was a little bit more seasoned, I guess, by the time of my first kid. I made that conscious decision. It's like I told my wife, all right, when we had my son, one of the regrets I had was like I wasn't home long enough when he came home from the hospital. So when he was born, came home, I took maybe I think a week off, if that, from work. And I didn't want to take all my paternity time because I had to go back to work. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to lose my job. I had to make money because now I'm feeding another mouth on the table,
Yep. Yep.
right? So living in the Bay Area is not expensive. I mean, not it's not cheap. It's expensive, right? So I had all that going, and then one of my regrets. I remember I went back to work, and I just was texting my wife, "Oh, hey, how's he doing? Did you change his diaper? How many times did he eat?" Just back and forth. I couldn't. I wish
Mm-hmm.
I was home, because it's those other parents out there. I know you don't have kids right now, but other parents right out there right now, they kind of you know hopefully they resonate when I'm going my stories, that I'm talking about, the experience I'm talking about. It's that, the kids that grew up so fast in the blink of an eye. I remember like holding my son and my daughter, they like could fit on my arm right here. And all of a sudden they're like dangling down, like gaining like 30 plus pounds now. It's hard for me to call it. So it's like, I wish I was home a lot longer during those beginning times. And from that point on, I told my wife, we knew we eventually wanted a second kid. So let's set ourselves up so that by the time we have the second kid, I'm able to take, excuse me, 6 months to a year off. No problem. And this is way back in 2016. So I know we're talking about like transitioning. It wasn't like a light bulb like came about. I was like, walked in, hey, I'm going to quit my job and do full-time real
Mm-hmm.
estate. No, no, no. This was like, we kind of made that decision, and we decided, okay, let's take the necessary steps in order for us to prepare ourselves so that I can take 6 months to a year off. And that sort of, dives into like our next question. But then, before that, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add,
Well, I
you know.
think the other thing I want to just add on there real quick is kind of the mindset and philosophy of being different too. Like most of society sees their life progressing as, okay, go to college, get a job out of college, kind of grow through that corporate ladder, keep getting promotions, get the kid, get the house,
Yeah.
get the nice car eventually, then retire at 65, right? That's kind of for better or for worse, the typical, path that most people kind of envision for their life.
Yeah.
But again, going back to starting with the end in mind, I didn't want to retire at 65. I wanted to retire before that, or at
Mm,
least have the means to retire before that if I wanted to.
mm,
And so that requires you to think different. You, me, anyone that's listening to this show or watching this show right now, like if you see your ideal life as being financially free by the age of 40, as opposed to 65, then you're going to have to do things differently.
mm,
And so again, back to why not entertaining a W-2 job, chances are if you want to, retire by 45, you're going to have to do things differently. And that
mm,
may require you to not have a job and be an
mm.
entrepreneur and, just figure out kind of your life and income source outside of a corporate job, we'll call it. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it's funny when this is like, this is not a new topic. It's one of the, topics always talked about around, especially in the world of investing in real estate. I think for me, it's, everyone's asked like, what's your definition of financial freedom?
mhm.
Right. And everyone's like, oh, they'll be, a millionaire or this and that. It's not necessarily a monetary goal. For me, it's like just having the freedom and having, me being in control of my own time,
Yep.
me being the architect, no pun intended, of my life, having a life by design. I've heard that term, thrown around different blogs and different podcasts, me being the architect of my own life, being the control of my own time, and having that freedom to do what I want to do. Well, work where I want to work when I want to work, and work with whoever I want to work with. And that's sort of the business mindset that you have to kind of get, because, we're going to talk about it later on, like, throughout this, this show is sort of like, there's risks involved with that as well. Right. So there, you got to kind of weigh it out, kind of both ends of the spectrum. If, hey, are you ready to quit your W-2 job?
Yep.
Right. Or not. And, if you make that conscious decision, you made a great point. Number one, step one, get in that mindset, right? So, kind of interesting to see, like, kind of like, when made that choice, like, what are sort of the steps that you did to sort of prepare yourself to, like, okay, I'm ready to quit this job? Because, like we mentioned earlier, you don't just open the door like, you know what, I'm going to quit right now, and then not have a game plan. You got to
Yeah.
have some
Well,
type of game plan,
yeah,
right?
I was going to ask you the question first,
Oh,
actually,
okay.
because
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think so you mentioned the fact that you were kind of preparing to leave a W-2 job. It wasn't just a flip the switch, I'm quitting, I'm out. It
yeah,
was like a somewhat calculated process for you.
yeah, it
And it
was,
probably took some years. So like what were you kind of thinking of,
yeah.
leading up until you had a plan to leave your W-2 job eventually.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny, like, it wasn't like I had a plan to kind of leave, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When my
Yeah.
son was born, I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to spend more time with him.
Yep.
And it started off with like, let's set ourselves up so I can take 6 months to a year off work. I
Yep.
didn't say like for me to quit my job,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And it sort of progressed that because, I sort of like, okay, let's focus more on real estate now, right? Because, my wife and I already had kind of like a small portfolio growing of single family homes, small multi-family homes, right? So then our goal was like, okay, typically what we heard like on, other podcasts, other shows, other blogs, like, okay, I'm gonna buy like one or two properties every year for the next 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then 1031 into like a big multi-family property, right?
Mm-hmm. And
That
then
was our
live off
goal.
that cash flow,
Yeah,
basically.
live off that cash
Yeah.
flow, replace our income with the passive cash flow, because that's so much what you hear all the time, blah blah blah, this and that, right? Before you quit your job, or, just to get that additional cash flow, so that, or savings, build up enough savings or capital so that I can take 6 months to a year off. That's sort of like the goal. So
Yeah.
bring more income in, bring more savings in, whether it's through through flips, through like rentals, however, that was sort of the goal. And then that's when I sort of, that's when I sort of found out about kind of multifamily syndications. We're gonna talk about, this might be another topic or another episode later on, but I ran into my partner, on the Bigger Pockets forum, and he had similar goals. He just had a kid too. We both had like, oh, we're gonna buy a few properties here and there at 10th or and then we came up, we're like, oh, why don't we just partner up and just get one big multifamily deal together? I
Wait, wait,
never
wait,
thought,
wait. So is that how you met your partner on Bigger Pockets?
yeah, well, so no, so he was on there. I used to work with him at another
Okay, okay,
architecture
okay.
company. Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
work
yeah.
with him. So I ran into his name. I was like, is this him? I wonder if it's him.
That's awesome.
So I messaged him, hey, dude,
Yeah.
I didn't know you were into investing in real estate. And it's like, yeah, I am. Boom, we got on a call right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
We talked for over an hour,
That's
and we're
cool.
like, dude, why don't we just team up and get a big deal together? I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how we sort of rolled into syndication. But then, so that's when my mindset started changing, right?
Yep.
Then
Yep.
I started more focusing, more getting more assets, right?
Yep.
more like scaling bigger. Because before I was thinking kind of like, I mean, it's not thinking small, but like just
Single
getting,
family here,
yeah, you just
duplex
get, yeah,
here.
just getting duplex here, a little single family here, and by 5 years maybe I'll get a nice little portfolio. But then if I partner up into this deal, I could get like one 16 plus unit deal
Hmm.
together
Yep.
in year one versus like year five, right? And the great part about that is I mitigate my risk and all that. But that's another topic, like sort of like the benefits of syndication. So, but then prior to that, I kind of like to get in that mindset. I don't know if you read that book, Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
It's on my list. I own it and it's sitting next to my bed, but I have not read it yet because I'm afraid to lose an hour of sleep.
Oh yeah. No, no. I mean, like he has an acronym called SAVERS,
Yeah.
right? Silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing. So I read that and I was like, wow, that's great. And when my son was bored, to get me in this real estate mindset, not even a real estate mindset, just this life mindset, I started doing that where you talked about kind of like in the morning, you wake up, you have silence, you kind of meditate,
Hmm.
and you kind of have affirmations, like kind of like reading your affirmations, like your goals and stuff. So I had that. I made a Pinterest board of kind of like different affirmations. I had a Google Keep, like a notepad where I kind of wrote my goals down and I read it every morning. I had a Pinterest board, a visual, like to visualize kind of like my goals. I had like pictures of like I think different cars that I
Yep.
like,
Cool
of
cars,
like
bigger
cool
houses.
cars, money, big houses, but not even that. Even stuff like I put like a school bus,
Hmm.
kids playing soccer, because those are things that I want to do consciously. Like I want to be able to pick up and drop off my kids from school every
Yeah,
day. I want to be
that's
able to take them
awesome.
to soccer practice and all that. So kind of goes. I put like kind of like family gatherings, all stuff like that. Vacations where I can just go on vacations. I don't have to rely on taking PTO. I had all that stuff, and I kind of like work kind of like this routine with my existing routine of going to work every
Yep.
day. I think we talked about this, like like I started my day. I kind of adjusted because I'm not an early morning
Early
person.
riser.
Yeah, I'm not
Well,
an early
actually,
riser.
Sherwin, before
Yeah.
we dive, let's maybe we give a quick summary of what My Miracle Morning, the book, is actually about for those that don't really know what the concept is.
Oh, so I mean, I don't know if I'm the best
Just,
person.
just a 2 sentence summarized version.
It's really just kind of like, I guess, changing your habits, your morning habits, to get you in the mindset to achieve your goals. I
Yep.
guess that's sort of
And I
like,
think from a
that's sort of what I
literal
got from it.
standpoint, it's
Right.
basically, I haven't read it yet, but
Yeah.
it is, to your point, changing your morning habits, potentially waking up a little earlier than when you normally would,
Yeah.
to fit in some key activities that are, hopefully will help you grow as a human and as a person
Hmm.
and achieve your goals too. So
Yeah.
using that SAVERS acronym, definitely recommend that as a read, even though I haven't read it yet.
I mean,
Sounds like
it's
a good
great.
book to read.
I mean, a lot of people don't believe in the whole like the laws of attraction and stuff, but it
I
definitely
believe it.
got me. It definitely got me kind of like, in a different mindset. Sort of like, when my wife was pregnant, I sort of,
Yeah.
I was in that mindset of kids, right? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, everywhere I went, I started noticing a lot of pregnant people all around in Target and restaurants, even in bars and stuff. Like, what's that pregnant person doing in
Yeah.
a bar? But they were always there. I just didn't really notice it. It's like when you want
Yeah.
a car, right? Oh, I want a
Yeah.
Tesla. Now you start noticing a bunch of Teslas all over. I mean, that might not be an example because there's always a bunch of Teslas here in the Bay Area, anyways.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But yeah, but then just to quickly like wrap up. Sorry, I was like going on a tangent. Like I'm not a morning person, so I sort of worked out this routine based off my schedule. My morning commute. I commuted from Oakland to San Francisco, so that was like an hour and a half commute every day, right? So on my way to the bus to the transition to the bus stop, I kind of like listened to some type of affirmation thing for like 10 minutes, right? On the bus, I kind of looked through my affirmations. I did my visualizations on the bus because I had like a 30 to 45 minute bus ride, and then maybe like just like 10 minutes before we were about to reach the Transbay terminal in San Francisco, 10 15 minutes, I'll put another YouTube kind of meditation kind of thing where I kind of just settle, I do my breathing and kind of just get ready for the day. And then when I get to Transbay, it's another half an hour walk from Transbay to my office, which was across the street from Pier 3. So that's when I got my my exercise. I walked
Mhm.
30 minutes, and then I also got my R. It, I prefer like listening to YouTube videos or podcasts versus in reading. I did some reading, but that's when I got like my reading done. I put on a 30-minute kind of podcast, or not even 30 minutes, just something, just listen while I was
Mhm.
walking. So I knocked on those two and so forth. And and then my scribing is sort of like journaling. I did that kind of on the bus too before. So I kind of rearrange it to work my schedule. And I did that like every day, every morning, because it's within part of my morning commute. Maybe I skipped it, maybe on the weekends, maybe I skipped it. I try to be more conscious about it, but it got me in the mindset of like, okay, I got to achieve my goals. I got to do this. I got to do that. And however reach that goal, so however you want to do it, it's just, I think it's important, for you to kind of get it in the morning routine,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's this, whether it's something else, whatever fits your lifestyle, whatever fits for you, and try it. If it doesn't work for you, change it up, do what you need to
Yeah,
do.
I think it's interesting because you went in terms of how you prepared to leave, or how you were kind of trying to prepare to exit a W-2 job. You went with a very tactical, specific, routine-based mental, I guess,
Yeah.
exercise every
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
And I think mine. I mean, yours was definitely more disciplined than my routine. I think my routine was just kind of actually more generalized in that, like, I focused on okay, I focus on investing. So basically, I split up my day where, 9 to 5, I'm working. I'm focused on my primary position and job. But in my head, I knew once I got home, it was time to focus on my other job.
Mm.
That was like my planned exit out of the W-2 world was to focus most of my time and effort outside of those working hours and weekends on my side hustles and
Hmm.
my investing career.
Hmm.
So that, I guess, that was kind of my transition, we'll call it, to non W-2 life,
Yeah.
was to just really hustle, man, and make connections, go to meetups. I mean, that's how we met, Sherwin.
Yeah.
Networking, relationships, saving all the money from my W-2 job, reinvesting that into real estate in the stock market. And then really just focusing, my 6 p.m. to midnight
Hmm.
on building other revenue income sources. And then
Yeah.
also weekends too, man, hustling.
Yeah.
Like I still, call me crazy, I still to this day hustle and deliver groceries on DoorDash to make some extra money here and there
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes.
I
So
mean, you just described the entrepreneurial life
I
right
basically,
there,
yeah, I
right?
basically
Yeah.
turned my,
Yeah. A
work
startup.
from nine to
Yeah.
five
Yeah.
on my primary job. And then, after some dinner, 6 to midnight is work on the entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
life. And then hopefully the thought was that 6 p.m. to midnight job would then become and take over my 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Because then, once I was in that mindset, I kind of did like what you did. Like, okay, I got to network. I got to
yep,
learn more about real estate investing. What's one way I can do it? Go to more meetups. That's how
yep,
we met up. Attend
yep,
more like seminars and kind of read up more, watch more podcasts, watch more YouTube videos, and read more and just get all this content that
yep,
to research in order to be in order for me to make conscious decisions and be a better investor, right?
yeah,
Because eventually my goal was still to just take 6 months to a year off,
mm-hmm,
just start investing. Maybe eventually it'll replace my career, maybe not. It wasn't kind of like top of mind for me, you know uh, then and there. It wasn't until my business started scaling and investors were asking us, like one of the questions they asked was like, oh, that's great, you're getting all these deals, Sherwin, and syndicating these deals. How are you managing all these deals now with a full-time job?
mm-hmm,
And that's another topic we can talk about, kind of like questions to ask kind of like operators. And we'd be like, yeah, we're doing it, but it's kind of like, when as a LP, we'll talk about this later, this is like multifamily, but as an LP, one important thing is if you're investing your money with an operator, like you want to make sure they're attentive to your
of
to the
course,
business strategy.
yeah,
And if they have a full-time job, they may be distracted or may not have the resources and the time to put in that effort to achieve the business strategy and achieve the goals, right? And I did like we did, like in the morning, work on kind of like the mindset, right?
yep,
Throughout the day, I remember at lunch I would take calls, or even my bathroom breaks, I'll walk
mm-hmm,
out, do a quick 15-minute call with a fellow investor and like, hey, I want this and that, or a call with a broker or a lender. And then in between work, if this is all
yeah,
throughout the day, but still,
optimize,
but
yeah,
still, not I guess not interfering with my daily career job, guess,
mm-hmm,
right? So
yep,
during my lunch break, so my off time when I had my breaks, and then come home, you know, dinner with the kids, spend time maybe a little bit here and there. That was the thing though. I came home like at 7:30. I spent maybe 1 hour with my son. My daughter wasn't born yet, right?
mm-hmm,
1 hour a day. Because then when I wake up, I leave like by 7. He's still sleeping, so he doesn't
yep.
even see me in the morning. He sees me 1 hour a day. I'm like five. That's 5 hours in a 5-day
Five
week,
hours,
right?
yeah, Monday through Friday.
Times that by
Not
how
a lot
many?
of time.
It adds up, right? It's not a lot of
Yeah.
time. So I was like, oh man, I gotta do something about that. But I did that. Dinner time, put him to bed, bath, whatever. After he's in bedtime, like what you did, 9 to 12, 10 to 12,
Grind it
work on the
out.
side hustle, grind it
Yeah.
out. and then repeat. Wake up at 6, repeat again. Do it
Yeah.
over and over and over again. And that's just part of that's part of the, I guess, the routine and lifestyle of being an entrepreneur, starting up your own business. And for me, I wasn't even thinking about like, oh, this might be a potential business. It wasn't until we started, you know, snowballing with a bunch of investment properties. We're like,
Hmm.
this might be able to turn to a business where it could replace my career as an
Your
architect
9 to 5 income. Yeah.
and 9 to 5, and actually do this more full time.
So why don't we jump into kind of the acute moment when you and I both,
Oh,
we'll say we're almost forced to jump into real estate full time.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
so we, as you can kind of hear as you're watching and hearing us, like we had a both Sherwin and I had a plan, and we were driving and striving towards eventually leaving our jobs. But there were a couple acute moments where we had to really just flip the switch from, okay, this is a side hustle slash an entrepreneurial endeavor,
Uh-huh.
into, okay, we're going full time. And it
Yeah.
was a very acute moment. So, sure, when you want to start with,
I was like,
you have
rock, paper, scissors.
your story is a lot better than mine, so I'll let you go first.
I like your story too, but okay, I'll go first. Well,